Welcome back to the Baseball Odds Watch podcast. This is the final episode of this baseball season. I'm your host, Eddie Virgil. Probably should have started with that. But this is the final episode of the season, of this baseball season. We will continue. I will continue here on Baseball Odds Watch as the hot stove starts cooking and free agents start getting signed to different places, and the numbers and these odds will start to change. But for now, we're kind of looking backwards. World Series is over. A champion has been crowned, and it was the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't know who was surprised by this World Series. I was a little bit, because I really thought it would be the San Diego Padres of all teams. They looked like the better team, and then that series ended. And it ended sort of unceremoniously, I'd say. Maybe not unceremoniously. It was a pretty good series between those two teams. Padres got off to a 2-0 lead in that series, and then the Dodgers won 3 straight. So, moving on, though, we talked about those series. Let's do our season recap, but let's start with our World Series recap, because I've been wanting to record this episode since the World Series ended. I haven't been feeling well. I'm still not feeling great. You could probably hear it in my voice, but this podcast had to be done at some point, so here we are. The Dodgers win in 5 games. They are your 2024 World Series champions. I thought it would be a little more electric of a series than it ended up being. You can blame Fat Joe, you can blame whoever you want, but it was kind of a dominant series from the Dodgers because they won all those games. Now, there were a few close ones. There were a few games that were winnable on either side, and it started that way in Game 1. That was an amazing game. I was at Billy's Sports Bar. It was a great time. I'm not sure what the thinking in the decision-making really was. It was a 2-2 ball game. The Yankees had tied it. Or the Dodgers had tied it. And then you get into extra innings, and Aaron Boone goes to the bullpen, and he turns to Nestor Cortes Jr. in the 11th inning, or the 10th inning, with men on base in scoring position. Nestor Cortes Jr. hadn't pitched in over a month because he was injured. And reality is, Nestor Cortes isn't a bad pitcher, but he is a starting pitcher. The mentality is different when you're a high leverage reliever versus when you're a starting pitcher. You can make some mistakes as a starting pitcher. There's still time to make up for those mistakes. You can get hit around a little bit. You can afford to walk a guy or two. A high leverage reliever can't do that. And any pitcher pitching in extra innings can't do that. So if Aaron Boone wanted to turn to Nestor Cortes Jr., 10th inning of Game 1, extra innings in Game 1, was not the time to do so. I'm sorry. I think it was an obvious decision not to go with him, but Aaron Boone made it. And what ends up happening? Freddie Freeman hits a walk-off grand slam. And after everything Freddie Freeman had to endure this season, his son, his injuries, you got to be happy for the guy. Like him or not, you got to be happy for the guy. So that happens. Then Game 2 was a win for the Dodgers. Then Game 3 is another win for the Dodgers. They weren't like these crazy games. Then the Yankees win Game 4, and everyone immediately was like, oh, the Yankees can make a comeback. It's a 3-0 deficit they're coming back from in the World Series. It's only been done once, and it was in an ALCS, not in the World Series. And it was tough. It was going to be tough regardless. So I have Garrett Cole pitching, and he pitches a heck of a game. And then that fifth inning happens. And it starts with Aaron Judge missing a routine fly ball because he takes his eyes off the ball last second. And then Anthony Volpe tries to make a play at third that they've made all year, and he throws it into the ground. And then it looks like Garrett Cole's got a chance to get out of it, and there's that ground ball to first base to Anthony Rizzo. And when you look at it, and I saw a side-by-side comparison of Mookie Betts earlier grounding out to first base, and they kind of did the same thing where Garrett Cole took like 2 steps and left it to Anthony Rizzo, and Anthony Rizzo took it and took it himself. This ball wasn't hit the same way. This ball had some what we like to call English on it, where it was kind of bouncing more away from first base, so Rizzo needed to throw it to somebody, and Garrett Cole saw a slow roller and said, Rizzo's got it. They didn't communicate, and that unraveled, right? Because then Teoscar comes up. He drives people in. Freeman comes up. He drives people in. Then the game's tied, and the Yankees had like no life after that. The momentum was gone. The energy in the stadium was gone. The team knew in that moment they lost this series. The season was coming to an end. There was no fight from them. There was no like, come on, like nothing. And this is a team that has an established team captain in Aaron Judge. There was none of it. There was none of it. That dugout was gone. That clubhouse was gone. Now, when you look at this defensive miscue, or you look at these defensive miscues, the Dodgers saw it coming. The Dodgers scouted the Yankees' defense in a way that essentially said what they say in Little League, which is put the ball in play and good things will happen. And that's exactly what happened. The Yankees have not been known for their defense too much, right? Sure, Volpe's a Gold Glover. Judge is a Gold Glover. But we know the Yankees as a hitting team. The Yankees know the Yankees as a hitting team. This is what happens, though, when you only focus on hitting home runs. You only focus on one thing. The other things go by the wayside. Defense wins championships in every sport. Baseball is no different. If you're going to make errors, they're going to come back and bite you, especially in the postseason, and they did for the Yankees. And the Dodgers knew this was going to happen. So they're the champions. The Dodgers were better on every aspect of the game. Every aspect of the game. They had better pitching, they had better bullpen, they had better hitting, they had better base running, better defense. I mean, they were just the team that they put together, and it showed. Moving forward now for the Yankees, I feel it's time for Aaron Boone to go. It's time to make a move at manager. Because it's not that Aaron Boone is such a bad manager that he can't stay. It's that you've had him long enough and you've only gotten so far. How many times are you going to get here without winning a championship with the same person in charge? And when you look at the Dodgers scouting report, it should tell you that there is a problem in leadership on this team. Because any good manager would not allow their team to be a team that's so simply scouted defensively. Ron Washington would not do that. Stephen Vogt would not do that. Francona. None of these good managers would allow their team to be the team that other teams look at and say, yeah, if we just hit the ball, we're going to beat them because they will beat themselves. That comes down to managing. It means that you're not prioritizing fundamentals. You're not prioritizing the things that you need to do to win a game, which is play good defense. You can hit all the home runs in the world. But if balls are dropping out of gloves, guys aren't covering bases, you're making bad throws consistently, you're going to lose. If you're giving up runs unearned, you're going to lose. It's simple. You cannot out-hit bad defense. You can't. So with that, I think it's time for Aaron Boone to go. Again, he mismanaged game 1 of the World Series, and I think off that alone, time to go. But it's just time. And if you want to re-sign Juan Soto, change has to be made. The guy has won a world championship and then just lost one with you in the Yankees. So if you don't make a change, he's going to have that in mind when he makes his decision as to signing with you or not. It's probably in his mind already. So if the Yankees want to keep Juan Soto, want to win a championship, it's just time to make a move. It's just time to make a move at manager. So speaking of Juan Soto and looking at forward, right, what's in front of us, free agency has begun. The hot stove is lit. Some teams have already made moves. The Angels made a trade for Jorge Soler from the Braves. And already Cincinnati hired a new manager in Terry Francona. That's a huge pickup, by the way. I want to talk about that one real quick. You got a guy that the Red Sox organization hired because they said, hey, we can win a championship. We want you because we think you can do it. And then they won that first year in 2004. Okay? And now he's got a really good, young, talented team. Fast. Terry Francona in Cincinnati should scare the entire league. I'm just saying. But looking at the free agents, we already talked Juan Soto. We heard what he said after Game 5. He said he's going to listen to every team. He's a Boras Corp free agent, and that's generally what Scott Boras' clients do. Is they listen and they play the offers and they want to hear what you've got. There are some teams I can't see him signing at, but it's the really bad ones, right? I don't see him going to the Chicago White Sox or the Washington Nationals again or the Oakland Athletics or the Sacramento Athletics or whatever they are, right? But I think pretty much everybody else is in play here, especially contenders, especially long-term contenders like Kansas City, Baltimore, who's ready to spend some money, the Mets. Like, there are a lot of teams that are out there for Juan Soto to sign. So he's going to be the Shohei Ohtani of last season. He's going to be that guys are watching where his jet flies and where he goes to and what he posts and everything. It's going to be a fun offseason for us to watch. I don't think it'll be too fun for Juan Soto. But this is his free agency. This is his free agency, and that Shohei Ohtani contract is going to play in here because he's going to want somewhere between Aaron Judge and a Shohei Ohtani, and somewhere more toward Ohtani than Judge. And then you've got Pete Alonso, a free agent. I didn't see that happening. I really thought the Mets would find a way to get a deal done with Pete Alonso before the season ends. It didn't happen. and I'm genuinely surprised. I do think that first baseman is where the market is right now. I don't think any other position has as much to offer than first base as far as quality goes, not quantity, because outfielders, there's a plethora, right? But first baseman, it's not just Pete Alonso, it's also Christian Walker, right? That guy's a stud. He's been to a World Series before. 30 years old. I'm sorry, 34 years old, 6.8 WAR. Apparently the best WAR among the free agent first basemen. So good for him. Carlos Santana's also a free agent. Now, granted, he's turning 40, but he just won a gold glove yesterday. We'll talk about that on another episode. Goldschmidt got let go, so he's going to be free. Ryan O'Hearn's got an option that the Orioles have a chance to pick up or not. So, and that's a team that's got a bunch of guys that can play first base. So, first base is it's tough right now. Free agency, there's a lot of money to go. Anthony Rizzo's now a free agent. Alex Bregman at third base is a free agent. Therefore, I mean, obviously he could still sign with Houston, but if he doesn't, that dynasty ends. That Houston Astros dynasty comes to an end essentially this offseason. If he doesn't stay in Houston, I'm interested to see where he ends up going. Tyler O'Neill, after a big year in power with the Boston Red Sox, is also a free agent. He's only 30, so he's got some time left. Interested to see where he goes. Anthony Santander, a monster season switch hitter who can play some outfield, some first base, power hitting switch hitter, which is always a good thing. He's a free agent. Luis Arraez is potentially a free agent. I'm not sure completely. I heard something about that. I'm actually going to Google that one as we speak because I'm not 100% sure. Okay. So he's a free agent next year. Okay, so there was a rumor out there that he was going to be a free agent. Maybe he opts out or something. I don't know. Teoscar Hernandez, the world champion, is a free agent, and if you are on a contending team, you got to pay and get Teoscar Hernandez because this is a world champion who performed in the playoffs. It's not like, he was just on the team, right? This guy, if it wasn't going to be Freddie Freeman, it would have been Teoscar Hernandez to be the World Series MVP. I think postseason MVP completely was probably Teoscar Hernandez, or at least he's got a case. This guy can flat out hit. He's got a cannon of an arm. He should make some money from a contending team. Corbin Burns is a free agent. I'd be surprised if he leaves Baltimore, though. I'd be surprised if the Arizettis don't pick him up because he is their rotation, or was their rotation at least. I would be shocked if he goes anywhere not Baltimore. I really would. He had a great year in Baltimore. I mean, the innings started to catch up to him toward the end there. Doesn't really do well with runners on base, but he's one of the better pitchers available. I'd be surprised if Baltimore lets him just walk. Anyway, Garrett Cole potentially could be a free agent. The Yankees have until 5 o'clock today to pick up his option, give him another year and some more money. If not, he gets to test the market. And that would be an interesting move for him. And then Blake Snell is also a free agent. He has opted out of his contract with the Giants, which everyone saw coming for months. The Giants need like a win in free agency. They need to get somebody. They've swung and missed in free agency the last couple of years, and they're going to be on the ugly side of a downturn if they don't pick up at least somebody now. Roki Sasaki is potentially a free agent. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the name Roki Sasaki, get very familiar very quickly, because if he becomes a free agent out of Japan, this is going to be a zoo. Every team is going to want Roki Sasaki. Okay? This guy has won the best pitcher in Japan multiple years. He pitched in the World Baseball Classic for Team Japan. The guy throws very hard and has nasty breaking stuff coming from Japan, so already a pro, and he's 23 years old. 23 years young, I should say. So he's got forever left to play. So if he comes over, if the Chiba Marines out of Japan decide to let him go, it is going to be a frenzy. Worse than it was for Yamamoto last year to see who signs Roki Sasaki. And every team should hope this happens and hope that their team signs Roki Sasaki. Because if you're one of those teams that's not a winner right now, you're still in a rebuild, you can sign Roki Sasaki for 10 years. If you're one of these teams that's trying to win now, you can sign Roki Sasaki for 10 years. I'm telling you right now, if Roki Sasaki becomes an unrestricted American free agent, you better hope your team picks him up. This guy is good. He is proven good. My goodness. I gotta read his accolades, because I looked them up a year ago, last year, thinking that maybe he was gonna come over then, but I didn't. He's thrown a perfect game in the NPB. Sorry, he's thrown a perfect game in the NPB. 2-time All-Star. He's had a 19 strikeout game, and oh, by the way, a World Baseball Classic champion. Your team, your favorite team, needs Roki Sasaki. My favorite team needs Roki Sasaki. Speaking of my favorite team, I want to say something about my favorite team, the New York Yankees. I want to throw something out there to Yankee fans and to the organization. Is it time to end tradition? Because making guys shave their beards and cut their hair to play for you and follow certain rules to play for you, I feel like only works when you're winning championships. When you're not, you've got to make changes. I feel like the Yankees are losing out on free agents because they don't want to have to do all that. Guys want to grow out their beards. I was in the military 6 years. The only thing I ever wanted was to be able to grow out my beard. As a grown man, you're going to tell me, hey, you got to shave every day and you got to get a haircut. To play baseball, I'm not going to. Some people culturally want to have beards and hair because it brings them back home. Some people, it's part of their identity. You mean to tell me I have to lose out on a potential deal with Head and Shoulders and Troy Polamalu and what's his name from the Kansas City Chief and Patrick Mahomes? I got to lose out on a deal with Head and Shoulders with Troy Polamalu and Patrick Mahomes because the Yankees want me to cut my hair just to lose in the World Series? Give me a break. Give me a break. It's time to let it go. The Yankees do the weirdest things at their games. There's no like mascots, there's no t-shirts, cannons. They don't give out towels in the playoffs. They're just stuck on this tradition. They won't even get a City Connect uniform. But then you go and lose. You cannot tell me, sorry, you cannot preach the importance of tradition to me if tradition is getting us nowhere. Tradition is not winning. It feels like that scene in Black Panther where he's just arguing with his dad in the afterlife. This is not working. None of it is working. It's time to make changes. Don't talk to me about the goats of Monument Park. They left. They're sleeping. It's time to break from tradition if you want to win. Let guys grow some beards. You're not going to tell me that Garrett Cole, clean-shaven Garrett Cole, you're not going to tell me that clean-shaven Garrett Cole is as intimidating as Astros Garrett Cole with the weird-looking beard, all right? That dude was scary. This Garrett Cole looks like he's a maitre d' somewhere, all right? It's time to get away from this tradition stuff and win a championship. It's time to make some changes. Anyway, sorry, I had to go on that rant there. Let's go over the season and what it was. I mean, obviously for me in Baseball Odds Watch, and I'm tearing up as I say this season changed my life. This season meant everything to me. I have put everything I have into Baseball Odds Watch. And before Instagram did me dirty, we had so much momentum on Instagram. I want to take this moment to thank every one of you who follows me on any platform. Right now, most active on TikTok. But I want to take this moment to thank everyone who showed any kind of support to Baseball Odds Watch, to what I'm trying to build here. Eric Hosmer followed me this year. I'm majoring in sports communication because of this. I mean, my entire life has literally changed because of one baseball season. So I want to genuinely say thank you and remind everybody that this is just the beginning. Make sure you're following and subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of it. But anyway, for these teams, what a season it was for some of them, and what a disappointment it was for others. Let's start in the AL East. Yankees, I go disappointment. Obviously, we've talked about them enough this episode. Orioles, I'd say also disappointment because you didn't get out of the first round again. Again, you had this amazing team. You almost won back-to-back AL East titles, and again, you got eliminated right away. Sure, it wasn't the wild card because you weren't a wild card team. Actually, no, I'm lying. You were a wild. You did get eliminated in the wild card by the Royals. Disappointing. Red Sox, I'd say successful. I'd say successful because they did have hope at one point, and this was coming into a season where they really didn't have much. They re-signed their manager in Alex Cora. They inked Brian Bayo for some more time. I mean, they invested in their future. That's all you can want from a team that's really deeply rebuilding. The Rays, I'd say, I guess disappointing. They ended up being sellers at the deadline. Now they don't even know where they're going to play. That hurricane, forgot the name of it, destroyed the Trop. That roof is completely gone, and they're saying there's no way that it's going to be rebuilt by the time the season comes back around. So Who knows what's going to happen there? And Toronto, definitely disappointment. Last place in the AL East. Should have probably made some trades for some of their guys and sold, but they didn't. So moving on to the AL Central. Guardians, heck of a season. I say success. First year with Stephen Vogt at the helm, and you come, what was it, 2 games away from the ALCS? I'd say successful. Kansas City Royals, definitely successful. Because the Royals were just a team that believed in each other. They shouldn't have been there. There was nothing this offseason that pointed to the Royals are going to be a playoff team. And then Bobby Witt Jr. came close to MVP. Well, it hasn't been decided yet, but most likely will be second place, runner-up and MVP. Salvi had a great year. But Seth Lugo and Cole Ragans had amazing years and almost got the job done through the playoffs. Hats off to them. I'm excited to see what they do. They also just re-signed Michael Wacha in Kansas City for 3 more years. So also I met Eric Hosmer, great guy. Love that dude to death. So anything he does, successful. The Tigers, successful, right? Because this was the team that everyone got excited for in the American League, at least. The gritty Tigers, right? The way AJ Hinch managed them into the playoffs, making crazy moves that many people were like, oh, this doesn't make sense, and they'd work out. Tarek Skubal, a Cy Young season, and this was all after people thought they were sellers at the deadline. They traded Jack Flaherty away to the Dodgers. So definitely a successful season for Detroit. The Twins, oh boy, what a failure. Oh boy, what a collapse. I thought the Twins would win this division. I thought they'd find a way, and then all of a sudden, they could not win in September. They could not win in September. And they went from being a potential team that was threatening for the Central a couple weeks before their collapse to completely out of the playoffs. Not even a wild card. Yeah, failure. And then the White Sox, we already know how bad they were. I don't want to throw salt on an open wound. I do want to say, it's kind of sad, but the Dodgers definitely sacrificed Miguel Vargas' career, at least in the short term, to win a championship. Poor guy. Astros, failure. And I know what you're thinking. They won the division. So what? Since when has that been the goal for the Astros? Failure. And you didn't re-sign Bregman. Failure. Failure. Seattle, failure. I could skip a lot of time. This whole AL West was a failure. This whole AL West had a failure of a season. Every single team. The Astros won the division and did nothing with it. The Mariners had the division lead and lost it with some of the best pitching there is. Probably the best rotation in baseball. Lost the division. The Rangers, the World Series hangover carried over, so they really didn't care. The Athletics, I mean, Fisher just is a failure. I'm sorry. This whole thing was a failure. Trying to move is a failure. Bad move, failure. And then the Angels are just bad. So, failure. NL East, the Phillies, failure. Failure because, again, just like the Astros and the Yankees, you're not a team that's expecting to just get to the playoffs. That's not enough for you. You got to win a championship. You've been there too many times. Failure. When you don't even get to the World Series, failure. Braves, successful. Why? Because they had everybody get injured in Atlanta. They were running out a roster of, oh, you're playing today. Cunha goes, Strider goes, Albies was gone for a while. I mean, they didn't know who was playing for them for a while. But yet Chris Sale and Reynaldo Lopez kept that team alive. Kept that team alive. And they made the playoffs. So I give it to them. Any team that can battle back from that much adversity, that's a success. And I know that Atlanta's a powerhouse franchise and they shouldn't get that kind of love, but I'm going to give it to them. The Mets. Already know the answer to this. Success. Success. What a season for those Mets. I wanted to see the Mets win for a while. Success. Sean Manaea had the best season of his career. Success. Jose Quintana, people wrote him off. Success. Severino's going to get paid now. Success. Moving on, Nationals, failure. And then on top of failure, your star player, when the season's pretty much over, in CJ Abrams, you send him down to AAA. I get it. You got to send a message. You can't be gambling at 6 a.m. when you have a game at 1 in the afternoon. But this is on top of the debacle of Steven Strasburg trying to retire and you not letting him. So National season, failure. Marlins season, last place in the NL East. Guess what? Success. Because at least this was a franchise that looked around and said, we're not going anywhere. We've got to start over. And they rebuilt. And I get it. They were a playoff team a year ago and they shouldn't be in that position, but they were. But they were. You can hold on to the past all you want. But when you look at now and you look around and you say, we're starting over, that's success. Did what you needed to do. Success. Moving on to the Central. The Brewers, failure. They were by far the team in the NL Central, and they got nowhere near the World Series. And they have yet to get anywhere near the World Series. They haven't even been to the World Series, let alone won one. Failure! The Cubs, failure. I love the Cubs. I do. I love that roster. I love the players on the Cubs. And that's why failure, because you had so many big names. So many. And you didn't even get a wild card spot. Failure. The Cardinals, ooh, failure. Failure. Because you were the favorites to win this division, and again, you didn't even come close to doing that. You went from last place last year to third place this year. Congrats. You have Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt on your roster, and Wilson Contreras and Alec Burleson. Failure. Awful. And now I know they're getting rid of Arenado. They've said it, and Goldie's a free agent already. They're resetting now. Get rid of Ali Marmol too while you're at it, though. He's got to go too. Cincinnati, as much as it pains me to say this, failure. This was a failure of a season in Cincinnati. They had so much hope coming into it. This was like a well-written wild card team if there ever was one, and then that roster just didn't get it done. I think the hiring of Terry Francona is something you could look forward to next year for Cincinnati. I do think it's going to make a huge difference. I could see them being a wild card team next season. That's all going to depend on how this offseason plays out for everybody. And then Pittsburgh. I don't know whether failure is success for this one. I'm going to go with success because when I went to Pittsburgh, I fell in love with the stadium, but that's not why. There was no optimism. There was no hope. And at one point this season, the Pirates were in position to make a playoff run. They were like 4 games out from the wild card. They were right there. They didn't do it. They ended up last in the Central and, whatever. But they brought up the most electric pitcher we've seen in a while as a prospect in Paul Skeens. They're looking toward the future over there. I think it's a bright one. They moved O'Neal Cruz to center field. I think it's a bright future over there. Moving on, NL West. Dodgers failure. No, I'm joking. As much as I would love to, but no, obviously a success. That is what you do. The Dodgers are a prime example of what is supposed to happen. You go, you make the signings, you make the trades, and then you win with them. I mean, bravo. It was a master class. This season was a master class of not only management, but also front office and just all around baseball at the big league level by the Dodgers. And you saw it play out on the field. This team won. They won a lot. They won 98 games. They came the closest to 100. They had the best record, and then they went on to win the World Series. Nothing they did was in vain. Nothing they did was wasted. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a reason, and everything worked out for them. What a year for the Los Angeles Dodgers. San Diego Padres. Successful. As much as I want to say failure because they only got to that DS and lost, it was such a good season. This was the one team that I think everyone looked at and said they can beat the Dodgers. They didn't. They came close. I think they got too cocky, too confident, and then lost. The Diamondbacks, failure. You won the World Series. You went to the World Series last year, and you didn't even make the playoffs this year. Yeah, failure. Failure. I like you guys, I do, but failure. Giants. I mean, I'm gonna go with failure, but what was expected of them? This pretty much 80 and 82, not make the playoffs, was kind of where everyone knew they'd end up. And the Rockies' failure, it was just a bad season. And then you got rid of Elias Diaz like it was his fault. So, let's do one last thing before we wrap this episode. Let's do, just for fun, let's do a check of the current World Series odds. Why not, guys? World Series was a week ago. Let's see what it looks like right now. The favorites to win it all are the Los Angeles Dodgers. Second favorites are the Yankees. Third favorites are the Braves. Fourth favorites are the Phillies. Fifth favorites, the Orioles. And then it goes Astros, Mets, Padres, Guardians, Cubs. That's it for the 2024 baseball season. Again, we will be back next week with an awards special. And then, obviously, if there's a hot stove update, we'll do it then. But kind of as free agents get signed and moves get made, I'll do either a podcast to wrap them all up or just post them on TikTok and Instagram. So make sure you guys are following. Thank you guys that are. And then 30 teams in 30 days will start sometime in like February. And then spring training, and then we're back. Thank you guys. See you next week.